It's Sean Plunkett. 0800 723 465.
0800 Radio Live.
Well, returning now to the issue that will not go away, driver testing and the incredible increase in failures for young people sitting their licences, and a licence regime which involves providing a running commentary. I got an email yesterday from a cognitive psychologist from Hamilton called Dr. Jack Treffner, who said he'd looked at this issue and thought that the new test and this test where you've got to provide the running commentary was, well, in essence, crazy. And he joins us now. Dr. Treffner, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Sean. Thanks for calling.
Look, can I ask you first, what is your, if you like, expertise, your curriculum vitae in regards to this?
Sure thing. My background is in cognitive psychology, which means studying the human behavior largely by looking at the relation between the brain's interaction with the body and the body's interaction with the world. And it doesn't only look at the brain, but it also focuses on, in fact, it explicitly focuses on the information around the human being or any animal, such as the structured light, the structured sound. Structural information is the basis for how we get about in the world, how we locomote, how we move, how we walk, how we catch a ball. So it's not only about the brain, it's about being sensitive to the information, the structural information, the light, the sound, that allows you to see and to act. And so my background is specifically, I mentioned to you in the email, was our team over in Australia did the world's first study of driving in real cars with a hands-free mobile phone, and we looked at the influence of that on the behavior of controlling the car and found things like a delay in the control actions of braking when approaching a corner, a delay of almost half a second, which means if you're too late going into the corner, you're too late coming out of it, you're possibly in the ditch. Things like that when you're speaking on a hands-free mobile phone, which is different from speaking to a passenger, of course. And so my background is psychology, yeah.
Okay. What do you think of this driving test? And I have to say, even though I only did a mock-up and I hadn't practiced, okay, so I wasn't schooled up for it, but having to verbalise what I was doing while I was doing it, I just found incredibly difficult. And I also knew as I did it that I will never do that again, because that is not how I drive. I do not talk to myself while I'm driving.
Yep.
Do you think... Now, the testers would probably say we do that to assess whether or not you are driving properly. Do you think that's a fair way to test that?
No, I do not. And let me point out that other countries do not, as far as I know, as well. I've spoken with an instructor friend of mine from the UK who assures me they don't do it in the UK. And other countries in the United States, it's made up of many states. I couldn't find any evidence there of anywhere where there's a requirement to verbalise your actions, what you're going to do about the hazards that you perceive. Now, having said that, other countries are quite keen on the instructors talking to you about trivial things in order to relax you. And many websites, if you do a search, they will recommend you to say to the instructor, look, I'd rather not talk during this because it's ruining my concentration, in which case they will not talk to you. But some people like to be talked to make it more, more like a familiar situation. So having said that, the requirement here is that you do have to verbalise what the hazard. This is part of the hazard assessment item in the full test, and it's a requirement here. And I should also point out, Sean, there's two major tests here now, and I fully support the effort by the NZTA to make it more difficult. Now let me clarify. In 2010, the restricted license was made more difficult to pass. It was increased to a 45-minute driving session from a shorter one, and in the restricted test, there is no verbalization requirement. Right. I'm not sure whether people realize that. It's only in the full test, which is shorter. It's only a 20-minute driving test, and in the full test, there's a requirement to verbalize. So I support the effort to try and get people on the road in the restricted stage, before the restricted license, getting 120 hours of practice. And so that's the reason for the logic. But I do not agree with this interference component of having to speak. I mean, by the time you have verbalized what the hazard is and what you're going to do about it, the hazard may have passed, and you may have missed the next one that's coming up. And I think that almost happened to you.
No, absolutely. I felt like I was in a time lag. I couldn't verbally keep up with what I was actually physically trying to do.
Absolutely. So this is the problem of cognitive interference. Now, in the mobile phones, it's very interesting. There's a phenomenon that's been looked at, in fact, by serious researchers. Some of the best in the world are here at Waikato University, such as Dr. Sam Charlton. He's looked at mobile phones like myself, and he's written about it in terms of the phenomenon of conversation suppression. When you're talking on the phone or to a passenger, the passenger will tend to suppress the conversation when a hazard comes up in order to deal with the situation, because it's difficult. So conversations tend to slow down in their rates and in their complexity when there are hazards. Now, this is just the opposite of what's being required of the learner. They're being asked to explicitly verbalize in a hazardous situation. So it's a conflict of requirements. It's kind
Will that also stress the applicant?
Absolutely. A nervous driver is a bad driver, and so I totally sympathise with these learners who are being somewhat freaked out.
Yeah. Do you think they should drop it, Jack?
I do think they should drop it. I think they should reconsider that requirement. It's also an assessable item. So if you're not speaking fluently and clearly and getting stressed and flustered and increasingly nervous, you're getting marked down on it. Other countries don't do it. I don't think it should be a demand.
Well, we don't do it. Interestingly enough, we do not do it for New Zealanders or immigrants who are converting from licences for other countries. Because of the language difficulties, they drop the requirement for the running commentary.
Sorry, are you suggesting they do that?
Well, no, they do that. There is no, if you are coming here to get re-licensed to a New Zealand licence from a foreign licence, you are not required when you sit the test to do the running commentary.
Okay, fair enough.
Because they are saying you'd have to go through your mother tongue, then to English, and that would be too much. Jack, have you seen any research as to why they did put this in the test? Have you ever heard the NZTA's reasons for doing it?
I can imagine why they're doing it, because it's not explicitly researched, but I can see the logic of why they might think it helps the instructor, because now the examiner is now getting extra information about what he thinks he's getting, extra information about what you know and what you see and so forth. But I would argue that it's sufficient for the examiner to observe and see whether the person has acted normally. I mean, if you look at the document, the full test guide, the requirements for this hazard detection read as follows. While driving through each of the assessable tasks, the applicant is required to verbally describe, in a few simple words, A, the hazards they detect, and B, the actions they would take in response to the hazard. So by the time you said what the hazards are that you've seen, such as there's a person coming from the left, maybe from the left, I'm not sure, is it from the left, maybe the right, and I'm now going to slow down. By the time you've said that, that's a response time, it's a reaction time. The event is over. You're flustered. There's interference with language. The most sophisticated thing humans do is language.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate.
Jack, I thank you very much indeed for your expert opinion on that.
No problem.
In some ways, it confirmed what I personally felt myself. And, man, it really confirms some of the issues many people who've written to me and rung in on this program have felt about the unfairness of the test.
I agree with your concern. I also think it is important that the test is kept difficult, but I think there's a certain degree of unreasonableness on the part of the testing organisation, and they should review it.
Good on you, Dr. Jack. I thank you very much indeed for your time. Dr. Jack Treffner there from Waikato University, and boy, I'd say that was an expert, owning of the current driver testing regime. 20 minutes away from 10.
Yeah, look, I think you've changed the face of it. That interview with that professor and all the others would seemingly show that they are doing things that are dangerous, and if not, not only dangerous, but against all best practice scenario, which is incredible, really. Asking people to give you a running commentator. But I didn't really ring up about that. So hopefully you'll change the whole industry there, Sean, with this. Well,
I think
on the driver's license.
I'll tell you what. The only reason it's changing is because of the response I have got from people who feel strongly about it, and I think have completely legitimate views. And believe me, I'm still working on this. I'm going to be talking, hopefully over the weekend, to a former driving tester who I understand was fired because he didn't fail enough people.
Oh, well, that's interesting. But the reason why I rang up, I heard this morning some other guy talking about the latest poll. I didn't
talk to you. Lola, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Sean. I heard that guy speaking this morning, and he's exactly correct. My passion is developing learning capacity. Now, how many times have you wanted to watch the weather in the weather forecast, watching TV, you're sitting in front of it, and as soon as it comes on, because the news has just finished, somebody wants to talk to you. Now, you're sitting watching the TV, you're listening to the TV, somebody talks to you, and you completely miss the weather forecast.
That's right.
That happened to you.
Yeah, and that's cognitive interference. Actually, Lola, that is such a good...
When you shift your focus.
Yeah, and you can be looking right at it, at the map, and it's all visual information, and because you're listening to someone or engaged in that conversation, when you
shift your focus, you are no longer engaged in driving.
Do
you understand?
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I think you're right.
They're taking your concentration away from driving because they've simply shifted the focus. And I wanted to make that example because a lot of especially people who fish, they want to see the forecast and they miss it, and they're watching it and listening, but they don't hear it because
it does not go in.
They have changed taken their focus away because they're concentrating on something else.
Good call, Lola. Well, actually, what a lovely example you've come up with. That's exactly what sort of happened to me on my driver's test.
If you shift the focus of the person who's trying to drive, that is dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, unless they're listening to Talkback Radio, Lola.
Okay.
Okay, I've got to say that. Actually, I just got this follow-up email from Dr. Jack Treffner. He says, thanks for that. He said, I forgot to say this. In the UK, the United Kingdom, the only drivers who have to do a running commentary on hazards are driving instructors on their advanced driving instructors courses. So New Zealand expects too much from its drivers. I've also been emailed by a traffic colleague who says they are required to verbalise and agree that it is silly. By the time you've tried to verbalise, the hazard is over and the next one is upon you. He thinks the NZTA may have got it from the New Zealand police, but no other country demands this. So yes, it is unfair and it should be dropped. Regards, Dr. Jack. Thank you for that, Dr. Jack. I think probably, Jeremy, we're going to get on to Andy Nexted and get him back on the program this morning. Maybe around 10:30. Let's get Andy Nexted back on. We've had 3, 4, 5, 6 days on the driving thing, and I want some questions out of Andy Nexted, particularly about the running commentary business. 0800 723 465 0800 Radio Live is the number to call. Email me, plunkett@radiolive.co.nz, and of course go on the Facebook page and you can make comment. And you know what? I've just got another email through from Dr. Treffner, and he really has. I think this is the most disturbing aspect of the test. He's said to me, he's actually given me some of the words that are in the full licence test guide. The purpose of these accessible items is to enable the applicant to demonstrate their higher order skills in hazard detection and response, while at the same time maintaining a polished driving performance. So is this a higher order skills test or a driving test? And Peter also says the idea of losing focus, Jack says, Dr. Treffner says, the idea of losing focus when language is involved is the basic problem of talking on a phone. Technically, it has become known as inattentional blindness. You become effectively blind when you lose attention, and language is the main culprit. And man, I see exactly what he's saying. And the more I think about it, the more the NZTA has got this wrong. Susan, good morning.
Hey, Sean. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Hey, you know that driving thing, Sean?
Yeah.
Do you woe-betide the driving tester who gives me the green light to talk while I'm driving? I was wondering, has anyone been failed for talking too much? Because of the nerves and thing? Because if I got in there, oh my God.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. That is the problem. But it is not a test. It's become a test of whether you can talk and drive. And it should be a test of whether you can drive, right?
Absolutely. Multitasking. They tell us we can't use cell phones, all that stuff. I think your campaign has been brilliant. Love to hear what Andy Nackstead said, because I used to think of all the public servants, all the propagandists out there, he was the best. I didn't hear his interview and I was quite surprised people being given him grief. But anyway, Sean, just wanted to say quickly, about the politics and stuff, saddened, but not surprised. And it probably explains why so many New Zealanders have disengaged. And
0800 723 465 is the number to call. This email from Nick. Dear Sean Flunkett. My name's Plunkett, not Flunkett. Well, it's Flunkett because I flunked my test. Very, very good, Nick. I'm just going to have to wear that. Thought I would put your driving mind at ease. I just drove from Browns Bay on the North Shore, Auckland, to Clark's Beach, Waiuku South, Auckland. Total 76 Ks. I got here in a timely, safe fashion. I did not describe every hazard verbally. Drove one-handed with my glasses on. Didn't indicate off roundabouts if there was no traffic to indicate to. I passed a total of 6 police cars and was not pulled over for lack of verbal hazard identification. Best of luck for your next driving test, Nick. Thank you for that, Nick. And I think you're getting the point, and you do get the point about what I'm on about here. Well, the issue that will not die for me, and a story which has legs because, try as I might, you people have got views on it, and more disturbing things are coming out. We're joined now by Alan Dick, well-known motoring writer and media person, I'd almost say, Alan. Alan, good morning to you.
A very good morning to yourself.
Look, Alan, I've been fascinated in the past week. We picked up the driver testing story off of something that was buried in the Herald one day, and it got me interested. Boy, it's been an interesting week. And I don't know if you've been listening, but I am of the view that the new driver testing regime, does not have a test which is actually very good at assessing whether or not people are good drivers or fit to drive on New Zealand roads. It seems more to be about assessing whether or not they can talk and drive at the same time. And also that we have a structure where a private company, appear to be no barriers or no check on a private company making more money than it should by simply failing people repeatedly when they go for their full licence. What are your views on the new regime?
I can't argue against a single thing that you've said, Sean. Certainly the lack of the lack of barriers, as you put it, is to these private companies failing drivers time after time after time and getting them back 5 or 6 times. But look, I'm sure that we're all well aware of the English joke sort of stories where we have heard about people failing their driving tests, 5 and 6 and 7 times, and actually going for a driving test is one of those great tense moments in lives. Look, I've long held the view that New Zealand driving tests are really a bit of a joke, and that's why we have a road toll per head of population that's about twice that of the UK and about 3 times per head of population of Germany. The people who are complaining about, our driving tests are too tough in this country, they want to pack their and go to Germany. It'll cost them about 5 times as much in driver training, and then they're going to fail their test time after time after time on real grounds, not just the sort of imagined grounds that we perhaps have here in New Zealand. But driver training in this country really is a joke, and we have taken the issuing of driver licences in this country as a right rather than the end of a skill test for far too long.
Alan, I am also hearing that it has now become financially so difficult for some people particularly in certain socio-economic parts of society, that more and more people are simply electing not to get their licence and to drive illegally.
Well, yeah, I guess that there probably is that too, but pilots don't get their license to fly an aeroplane without reaching certain skill levels.
Yeah, but I've had pilots email me in the last few days saying we don't have to do a running commentary when we're going for our rating every 6 months.
Yeah, that's right. About 5 or 6 years ago, when I was at Radio Pacific. Actually, I was challenged by a driving school to come and sit the test again. I actually passed, which surprised the guy. But you're right. He asked me questions all along the way on why I was making this and why I was making that decision. But I suppose, but I don't think that really matters, Sean. I think that you should have the ability to be able to drive a car properly, regardless of what the driver instructor or the driver tester is saying or doing. I don't really think that's relevant. I think that skill levels are the thing that is relevant.
Okay, all right. So you would like to see what, the NZTA revisit the regime?
Oh, look, I think that everything that we do in this country regards road safety, we should pack them all up, everybody that's involved, and send them to Germany for 5 years to study the German approach to everything. Now, look, there has been this debate, and I know that it was Paul Henry laughed his socks off over it, but the Labour policy to try to ban trucks from the so-called fast lane or the outside lane of New Zealand motorways. In Germany, they just would shake their hands and say, how on earth does this happen in a civilised country? Our whole attitude to road safety in this country really has come from the bottom of a crackerjack box. It really is. We are third world. We really are third world. We're a nation of lousy, appalling drivers, and that's the bottom line.
But Alan, you know what? I'm not sure that we are. I know everyone says that. Are we really?
Oh, of course we are. Have a look at the lane on the Auckland Southern Motorway. It's absolutely terrible, weaving in and out. And yet, about when was the Rugby World Tour here? Rugby World Cup,
2011.
It was. The country was overrun with British drivers driving camper vans, and you knew that they were British because they all had lane discipline. You saw them. They were on the inside lane, the slow lane of the motorway, and that's where they stayed. The New Zealand drivers really are third world.
All right, Alan, what about the corporate structure where the licence testing is now being done by this company registered in Whakatane called New Zealand Driver Licence Services? It's got paid up capital of $6,000, and in a week I haven't heard a peep out of this company, and when we've tried to get hold of them, they've referred us to the NZTA.
Well, I don't know anything about them, but does it really surprise you? This government seems to have this sort of thing in play all over the place. Just
farm out the responsibility and the regulation.
Yes, yep. I don't know enough about it, Sean, to be able to comment. But I do know that failing drivers does just an easy way to get them back for a second and third and fourth attempt.
Yeah, and get the $80 every time. Alan, it's good talking to you. I thank you for joining us. Alan Dick, motoring rider, former Radio Pacific. There's a blast from the past name. James, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Driver test. I could have a different view of this, and that is that the driving test is how the situation appears to the person's cognition, right? Now, also, the driver test, it is how it appears, you take into account the test's designers, it is how it appears to their cognition as well. Okay, so actually, really, what you think of as a driver test isn't really a test. It's they're measuring how you can cope, because the massive distraction that the guy's watching your every move isn't factored into the results. And that's a significant thing. If they were tested, right, I've had very few accidents, right, very few. I've had 9 motorcycles, 1 incident, right? And I say this, right, if these people had to spend 2 weeks riding a little nifty-50 scooter in an urban environment, what would happen is how that would appear to the cognition is I've got to be safe.
Yeah.
And you immediately grasp a defensive driving attitude.
Yeah.
In a car, that doesn't happen. A whole different mindset takes over getting in a car.
Oh, so James,
does.
are you saying we should all have to ride a nifty 50 before we can get our driver's license?
Well, you take into account that how it appears where you
But James, is that really seriously what you're suggesting?
Well, you immediately respect defensive driving.
Because if you are, James, that's wacky.
You immediately respect defensive driving techniques.
All right. But James, I'm not going to drive a nifty 50. Probably wouldn't be able to move with me on it. We've got time for another couple of calls already. Simon, g'day.
Yeah, g'day, Sean. With this dividing and running commentary, this comes from the old advanced driving test for your P-class licence. And unfortunately, they've inflicted it from advanced drivers onto those new drivers.
Yeah, well, the only place in Britain where it's used is for the driver's instructor's driving test.
In New Zealand, I just had my P-class licence 15 years ago, and it used to be part of the advanced driving test. You had to provide a running commentary of hazards. And then 5 years ago, with the reforming, they moved all of that from the advanced driving test for your P licence onto the basic driving test, which is silly because these people still don't have the confidence on the road, and they're showing the ability to hold safe driving. Another thing, quickly, Sean, is with the voter turnout people have been talking about a lot.
I thank you for your call, Simon. Lot smarter than having to ride a motor scooter before you get your driver's license. I just want to read this email. Regarding running commentary testing, it is very common. The RNZAF do it for testing their aircraft mechanics. My son had to do a running commentary while he was assembling an aircraft in a test that went over 3 days. Very stressful. Yes, but nothing to do with driving. Also, primary schools, with their numeracy testing, the children have to verbalise to the teacher how they worked out the answer. Yes, but nothing to do with driving. Simply writing the answer is not enough. You have to explain how they worked it out to pass. Not sure if this is all totally relevant to your current conversation. It's not. But verbalising what you do does seem to be the new norm in testing. Okay, but it's still silly. It's still just silly. End of story. 21 to 11. All right, who's next? Be you, Ron. Good morning.
Hello, Sean. It's a very good program. I must congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
This is the first time, this is the only English radio station I'm listening to, as I am an Indian. Please, my apologies if my English is not very clear.
Your English is way better than my Indian, Ron.
Great. Now, I must say, coming to New Zealand has been the best thing ever that me and my wife has ever done. Is because of the services provided here, the government, everything has been looking, has been brilliant for me. Coming from Fiji especially, I can tell you, my friend, things are way worse than what it should be. And coming to the licensing, I got a conversion on my license. It is converting from Fijian license to New Zealand license.
And you didn't have to do the language thing, did you? Because they don't. That's not a requirement when you're doing a conversion.
I had to sit for the learner's test, which is on the computer, and was very difficult for me because I'm not good at all on the computer, and I wonder what people would be doing if they're not good on computer anyway, or knowing the English. The other thing was, as soon as I finished that, I was given a chance to go and do my practical test, which I failed for the first time. The reasons that were given is that I did not signal at the right time at the roundabouts, and actually I'm a very talkative person, so as soon as I sit in the car, I started chatting with the driving instructor, which was...
Oh, no, you were over-talking. You were over-talking, Ron.
I was just as a friendly person. Hello, how are you? Queenstown is so beautiful. Everything is so nice, So I started chatting to him, which basically he did not enjoy at all for some reason. So after that, I failed the test, and I went for my second test, and they did not let me sit for the test, saying that my driving license, the temporary license, has expired. And that was the day I was going to, just the day before it expired, which was on a Sunday, and I had to sit a test on Monday, which I understand was my fault because the card did not reach me on time. But still, the IA...
Oh, Ron, that's just nitpicking rubbish.
Yeah, that's that's exactly what happened. And when I did talk to them, I went to reschedule my classes, of my driving test. And they did see the expiry date, and they did not tell me that it is going to expire the day before you are sitting for the test. So I was quite surprised. I gave them a call on their customer service, and I did explain them the situation, and they waived the fee, saying it is their fault. They should have...
okay. Nice comeback. That's good.
Yeah. So they did waive the fee. So I went back for the other class. And just before I went for the other class, I went for a driving lesson, and I paid for 1 hour, saying I just want to know where I'm wrong or where I'm right. And I did my driving test, and they said, you're perfectly fine. Everything is okay. The driving instructor will be talking to you on the way. And I started laughing because the first time I talked, they put me off. And the second time they said I will be, they will be asking me questions, and I will have to tell them about the hazard, which did not happen. And I was surprised. And I did pass my test, which was really good. But the main thing I would like to say over here is that small things like the expiry date and all those things is going to cost people money. Over here, the wage rate, the lowest is between 13 to 14. And in Fiji, the wage rate is as low as 80 cents per hour.
Wow.
And people over there are not able to afford for things as such. When we come to country as such, there are so many people over here who are not able to afford such money. And I think IA should look into that, or whoever is responsible for this is,
because a lot of people, so Ron, are you telling me a lot of people that you know in your community simply cannot afford the cost of jumping through all these hoops as it's set up right now?
That is for sure, because New Zealand has so much things to offer, and we are really enjoying our stay, and we are now the resident over here, and we are really enjoying whatever it has to offer. But this is something that is really slacking it down.
Causing a problem. It's what I'm hearing from so many people, Ron. I thank you very much for ringing in. Feel free anytime. Your English is excellent, by the way, my friend. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a wonderful day.
You too. It is 11 to 11.
Hi, this is Hilary Barry, wishing all mothers in New Zealand a happy Mother's Day this Sunday. The good news is...
Kayla, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I've just got a different opinion. I'm not actually normally a Radio Live listener, but I thought I'd ring in because I'm 26 and I set my full license 10 years ago now. And I did the hazard identification, and I thought there was nothing wrong with it. When they got me to do it, it was on the open road. All I had to do was identify hazard 12 seconds ahead. And on the open road, all it really was side roads, so you're watching for cars and what the other traffic, you might say, car with the trailer ahead, they'll be going 90, I'm reducing my speed, side road coming up, looking for cars. Yeah, I didn't think it was hard at all.
Well, Kayla, that's good. You're brilliant. You're a multitasker. Congratulations.
Just another perspective on it is that you should be looking 12 seconds ahead, and I don't know.
Yes, you should. But for many people, and we've heard from an expert this morning, your ability to do that for many people is actually impeded by having to verbalise doing that.
Okay. Well, I think that, they're dumbing it down to people, in my opinion. And I think you should be able to just, it's not hard to say, and you're talking that far ahead that you've got time. And if you miss one thing, you don't fail on that.
Well, people have, because they've rung us and told us they've been failed on things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but Kayla, good on you. Good on you for acing it.
Yeah.
Have you had any pranks in the last 10 years?
No, I haven't actually.
You're a safe driver then. And I'm happy to share the road with you. Ring in any time, by the way.
Okay. Thank you.
Cheers. 0800 723 465 is the number to ring in if you want to. Peter's. Yeah.
But anyway, listen, what I was ringing about was this licensing nonsense. That, I've got two concerns. One is a most concern, and one is a more concern. The first one being is that everything that you have all highlighted about this nonsensical licensing procedures.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have to stop sitting on their hands and address it, because it's really bad. But what is more concerning to me is that we have allowed tourists to come in with supposed or said international licenses. Well, that's a nonsense. There's only one category of driver who should have an international license, and that is a motor racer. Because globally, they all follow the same code. Same code applies internationally. So these visitors who are country, and I can see there are a lot of people up in arms about it. Oh, you can't stop that because you'll cut off our tourist dollar. But an international license, they should be made aware that to come to New Zealand, you've got to comply with a basic standard of road code to drive New Zealand roads. And they've got to take this test in their country of origin.
Peter, Peter, I hate to say it. I hate to say it, and I was just thinking about what you were saying. We've got to think about cultures here, and you and I were brought up in a culture where we utterly accept the imposition of a code of conduct in our road and the idea that we need to somehow qualify or hold a license to be able to drive on our roads. And that's because we grow up in a civilised Westminster democracy developed country.
Yeah, and that's a given, and we accept that, don't we?
Yeah, but lots of people come from countries where you don't even bother having a driver's licence, where life is cheap and somewhat more fluid than it is here.
Yeah.
And you might get a driver's licence if you're going to go overseas on holiday, if you can afford that, and you're one of the, financial elite. Yeah. Not one of the peasants. Yeah, but I bet your average driver in Chile, say, in the rural areas of Chile, doesn't even have a flipping licence and doesn't even have a requirement to get one.
Yeah, and I mean, some people, and I know of many, who can hardly drive, who come from other countries, I mean, Czech Republic, I can just go Germany, and they just buy a car or hire a van or a car or a vehicle. Yeah,
probably not Germany. Well, everyone keeps on saying the Germans are great drivers. That's just because of Michael Schumacher, though.
I mean, here's an example. When I was living down south in central Otago for a while, and there was a couple of tourists who left a fruit stall on the main road, I think it's State Highway 6, heading to Queenstown, drove for 7 kilometres, entering the Kawara Gorge.
On the wrong side of the road.
All 7 kilometres, and they connected head-on with a vehicle right outside the goldfield. Yeah. And how anyone was not killed, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
well, Peter, I think that is a point of concern. There was a point of greater concern, was there?
Sorry?
Was there another point of greater concern than that?
Oh, well, no. My concern is that, anyone driving on an international licence, that's null and void.
I don't know. I just think rental cars should have to have big F for foreigner plates, so we can all watch out for them, Peter.
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah.
I thank you for your call. Whom is next? Gosh, I hope you've waited, Steve.
G'day, mate. And I know I'm running into the news shortly. Hey, a few points. Firstly, when I did my licence, my truck licence, the driving instructor, tester, asked me about how the gearbox was working because he wasn't familiar with the vehicle. I was in the wrong gear for the hill start. His statement was, I can't fail you, I can't even comment on that, start again, redo the hill start test, portion of the test, because I distracted you.
Oh, man,
Okay, and now secondly, I drive trucks, obviously.
Yeah.
In a 3-second period, if I was to articulate what I was looking at over a 3-second period, particularly when you're checking your mirrors in the 10 and 2, second rule, okay, you take 5 minutes to explain it. the different vehicles moving around on the road, the different.
There is so much going on in your head immediately in ultra real time if you're paying attention. That's right. You don't have time to get the words out.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that in itself is a major distraction, particularly with somebody. The whole idea of the test is to make sure that a person can put the vehicle in the right places on the road at the right time and is looking, able to do a certain grading of skills. Start, stops, corners, roundabouts, what have you. A half a second for this, a delay, not turning your indicator on or turning it on half a second too early is bollocks. Because I know from experience there are some corners or intersections I approach and I put my indicators on well early to make sure people don't try and cut up the inside. Yeah. And the lucky, and hopefully my last point, is the your comment, the driver, the motoring magazine guy that was talking before, saying about the people on the motorway system zipping in and out. Yeah. None of those are on learner licenses. I guarantee you everyone that gets stopped by the police or whomever is an experienced driver. They've had their license by that. They've had their license for a certain period over a couple of years.
Yeah. I hear you, Steve. Steve, we've got to go to the news, mate. I thank you for your call. Just got an excellent email I'm going to share with you after the break. Michelle and Mike with us after. Oh, yeah, I just want to read this email before we go to Mike and Michelle. Hey, Sean, I'm a 43-year-old driver, been driving since 1986. I watched the video of your test with despair and tried driving this morning as if I was having a test too. It drove me completely nuts in about 2 minutes. My driving went from relaxed confidence to stop-start, stressed-out idiot. Try driving exactly 30 kilometres an hour in a 30k zone and not getting honked at. And how on earth you don't get a sore neck from all the mirror and blind spot checking is beyond me. Sean, challenge. I bet I could go out in my car right now and within 5 minutes find 10 to 20 drivers breaking the law. Lack of indication, not staying in the lane and mobile phone usage is chronic on our roads here in Christchurch. Full of tradies and vans who don't give a hoot. Excuse the pun. Great show, mate. Regards, John. Thank you for that, John. All right.